we have a positive outlook. And that positive outlook goes off of what we've seen here every day with Andy. And that's Andy going to be leading our offense as Justin's progressing at the right rate. Our goal all along, guys, has been to win games with Andy and look over on that other field and see and look at this guy we got right here. Look at the future of this franchise that we have right here. That's the goal, and we haven't changed from that.
I think everything he said about Andy Dalton was to be expected. I don't know what you want, for people criticizing what Ryan Pace was saying, I don't know what your expectations were, what you were anticipating, what you wanted to hear, but you know what? We messed up. We should have gone after Andy Dalton last year, even though he was on the Bengals still. And maybe we should have traded for him and brought him in last year. I don't know what people are looking for. I think there's been a stubbornness to the Bears' plan that's been pretty apparent from the get-go. It became pretty obvious to me that after that first preseason game, when Justin Fields did not see an significant increase in opportunity with Allen Robinson, Jimmy Graham, Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, that this was still going to be Andy Dalton's show, at least in the early going for this season. So, of course, he's going to talk up his guy. And truth be told, Andy Dalton never had one of those awful days at camp where you're like, holy moly, this is going to be disastrous. I had those feelings when Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky had some bad days of practice. I had some concern when Andy Dalton had to get out of the pocket in the preseason. That doesn't look good. That's not going to work. But Andy Dalton's not here to do that. He's here to make quick decisions and be with some of the better players, and they weren't on the field with him. So we'll see what happens. But he's just a placeholder, right? I'm rambling here, but that's the whole point of this. He's just got to be a capable placeholder until they deem Justin Fields ready, whatever that definition of ready is.
Look, I have some sympathy for this being a tough situation, that you have a fan base that's just so hungry to have a star quarterback because they've never really seen it. Okay. But I think where fans and probably some reporters and media start to get, I would even almost use the word borderline insulted in some cases, is when these guys, and it's not just the Bears, it's the personnel guys, coaches, they do this all the time. They hype up guys that, Bill Belichick does it every week with his opponent. He talks up, he'll probably, I don't know, they're not playing the Bears this year, but if they were, he'd probably go on a 500-word answer about Kindle Vildor and how great he is right on tape. But just don't make Andy out to be what he's not. I think that's part of the problem. This was a guy.
Are they though? I don't know.
When you get asked a question about Justin Fields and then you answer it with how happy you are about Andy Dalton. And by the way, I'll give Matt Nagy credit. I don't think Matt's doing that. Matt's answering questions about Justin.
Oh, Pace pivoted. Yes. He
That's the problem.
Yes.
And you made this point last week, I think. If Andy Dalton is this awesome professional that you keep talking about, then he can handle this. Does it suck a little bit? Yes. Is it easy? No. But he can handle it.
Yeah.
He just saw Joe Burrow take his job in Cincinnati, right? They were done with him.
He was Dak Prescott's backup in Dallas.
He can handle this.
Yes. Eventually, he is going to handle that. He's going to have to.
But don't try to sell. I think what they are, whether they're not going into specifics about how great Andy Dalton might be, they are talking him up, and they are trying to sell this idea that they can win. They can go through a full 17-game season, whether we believe that's realistic or not. They keep trying to hint at that they believe they can go through a full season without playing Justin Fields and be competitive and win football games. And I just went through all the concerns on the rest of the roster. It seems a little disingenuous, doesn't it?
I think our good friend Mark Potash from the Sun-Times brought up a good point the other day. It's not so much that Justin Fields isn't ready. I think we can all agree that he looks close to ready. You think he's absolutely ready.
Yeah, I do.
I think he's close to being ready, where maybe that readiness comes more to fruition with actual gameplay. That's where I'm at. Like, he's going to get better through actually playing. He made the point, well, Fields may be ready. The offense isn't ready for him. And I could see, well, Justin Fields is supposed to raise the level of play of the players around him. And I strongly believe that Justin Fields did that. That's why Rodney Adams became such a fan favorite. It's because Justin freaking Fields threw some perfect dimes to him and gave him opportunities to make plays in camp and the preseason. It's Justin Fields. It starts there. But at the same time, you still want to help your young quarterback as much as you can. You still have an offensive line with a 39-year-old left tackle who got here like yesterday, who was fishing, got the call to play, went through COVID protocols, and now he's your starting left tackle. You still need to get certain players situated, like Jermaine Ifedi. He missed like how many days of camp? Now he's your
Most
starter.
of it?
Yeah, you need that offensive line to figure itself out. Like, I get that Justin Fields' his ability to escape the pocket, ability to run, enhances the entire offense, but at the same time, you still want to help that quarterback as much as you can. So I'm on board with Potsy's idea. I think that's a great way to look at this. Andy Dalton's got to be that placeholder while things come to. Things are resolved around him, whether it's Demir Bird setting in at slot, Marquise Goodwin finding his role as that down the field threat. Brashad Perriman getting acclimated. Your guy, Perriman, we're going to call him your guy, by the way, now. Mooney taking that next step. Cole Kmet taking that next step. It's all those things coming into play. I know you don't like this idea.
Because here's the thing. You just listed like 10 things.
Yeah.
And maybe one of them will actually happen.
Well, some of them have to happen.
Especially
up front.
I'm starting to lose my mind with this in general because how much more obvious can it be that Justin Fields is the cheat code? That he's the guy that makes all this happen. It could not be any more obvious.
You can't get behind the idea that you still want to give him the best chance to succeed by having things being in better places around him. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit because
I know, but what more evidence do you need to see from this scheme now 3 seasons into year 4 that any of the stuff that you're talking about? Now, I'll give you Cole Kmet. I think Cole Kmet will be better.
I think David Montgomery is going to be better.
I think David Montgomery is going to be better too, but then who's blocking in front of him, right? Are those holes going to be open? I mean, there's a ceiling on Jermaine Ifedi. And we may have actually seen the best of Jermaine Ifedi at tackle in the last 7 games of last season when he gave up 1 pressure. And by the way, that 1 pressure cost him the game against the Lions. That's probably the ceiling. What's the ceiling on Jason Peters?
Oh, I think that ceiling was a long time ago, but
I guess what I'm saying is, what is actually going to happen that all of a sudden makes this situation perfect for Justin Fields?
No, I'm not saying it has to be perfect, but you should still try to make it better. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Well, let me play devil's advocate to the advocate. What if it's worse? Because I think that's a possibility that needs to be explored. What if it's halftime in week 1 and you have 3 points? What if it's halftime?
That's also a very realistic scenario because of who you're playing.
What if it's halftime in week 2 at Soldier Field? The whole crowd is booing because you have 3 points against the Bengals after only scoring 7 or 8 total against the Rams in week 1.
Now you have a problem on your hands.
And don't you think, I hate to say it, what I'm painting right now, and this is maybe the most negative I've ever been on this podcast in the 7 years we've been doing it, I think my scenario is more realistic than the 10 things you listed off that are suddenly going to get better.
Probably right. But then you're looking at...
And what fixes it all?
Yeah.
The quarterback.
Yeah. Well, you know what, though? Joe Burrow is a perfect example of him not fixing it.
True, although I would, as much as I just shit on everything about the Bears, I think the Bears situation's better than what Joe Burrow is dealing with in Cincinnati. Oh, it's a fair point, though.
But that's also, the coaching comes into play. You can't have your young quarterback drop back and throw 40 freaking passes a game.
Yeah, that was stupid. And Joe Burrow can't run a 4.4 too.
You're not.
That makes a huge difference.
You're not putting him in a situation to exactly succeed. There's all sort of nuance and arguments that can be made here, but
I just think the inevitable is going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know if it's a halftime next week. I don't know if it's in week 12.
And if the inevitable does happen, and I do think it will happen, that's why it's called the inevitable. Andy Dalton should be good with it because you know what? When the inevitable does happen, it's also because the inevitable of Andy Dalton failing has already happened as well.
But actually, here's where I'll defend Andy a little bit. I don't even know if it's his fault. Like, I think they're almost putting him in position to fail.
Well, I don't think Andy Dalton can win.
Which gets back to my original point. Like, this was a guy who there was a reason why the Bengals wanted to move on from him and get a young quarterback like Joe Burrow, which to their credit, they managed to do. And then the trade market last year was like, who wanted Andy Dalton last year? He ended up signing a decent 1-year contract with the Cowboys, but like, that market wasn't hot.
Well, the Bears had already made their decision at that point, too. They traded draft capital for Nick Foles.
Which tells you what they thought about Andy Dalton a year ago. So, come on. It's Andy Dalton is not going to be the thing that suddenly makes Matt Nagy's offense work in year 4. And I think that's where I totally side with some of the fans and media that are sitting there listening to some of the stuff that comes out of these press conferences. And it's like, come on, we're not that stupid. Not that stupid. Just not. So stop trying to sell that. If you want to sell that Justin Fields isn't ready and needs more time, fine. But don't tell the fans that you're a legitimate competitor without Justin Fields on the field. I think that's disingenuous.
I think Potash's argument is the best one that could be made for why they're going to be patient with Justin Fields, given what Justin Fields has already shown us in the preseason. To your point about Matt Nagy's offense, Justin Fields is like Patrick Mahomes in a sense where he can make plays that transcend the offense. See what I'm saying about that? Some of the Chiefs' biggest plays are made when they're improvised. When the actual play itself doesn't work, but all of a sudden Mahomes is on the move, and he is deadly when he's on the move because that's when the scramble rules kick in, and he's got some of the best players at their respective positions to help him out. Like Justin Fields fits that. Like it's that Jesper Horsted touchdown against Nashville. It's the scrambling against the Bills. It's some of the things he did against the Dolphins, especially come when they practice. Like he can make the plays that transcend the offense. That can make any offensive coordinator look good. Because when plays break down, they always do. When the reads aren't there and everybody's covered and plays have to be made, Justin Fields has that ability to transcend that play call and give you that play.
And I think that's the point I'm trying to make. It's like, let's just not ignore that the scheme is still unproven. The offense is still, really unproven. They're averaged 26 in yards per play over the last 3 years. Okay. And Andy Dalton isn't going to be the thing that fixes that. That all of a sudden, like we talked about earlier, maybe they move up to 20, 19, 18, like maybe. But that's still not going to be good enough to beat the Packers in the NFC North. I mean, what are we talking about here? You need a transcendent talent. And that guy's going to be, we don't know if that's going to happen with Justin, but it could. And we're not going to know if he's sitting on the bench. I think that's the problem. So, and by the way, I say this, I have been open-minded to this Andy Dalton transition happening. I was never on board with the whole season, but I have been on board. The problem here is Justin has exceeded my own expectations. I did not expect to write the 10 reasons why Justin Fields is ready now after 3 preseason games. I really did not come into camp with that as a predetermined bias. He has forced that on me with what I've seen from him. So I want to make that perfectly clear. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic.
Can I say, like, it's more than just the preseason, especially with me here. I know I just played devil's advocate a little bit earlier, but like the practices that he had against the Dolphins, first one was so-so, second one was exceptional. It's when he had 3 touchdown passes and the rushing touchdown in the red zone drill, where things are a little bit, they're less vanilla, where he was blitzed. One of those touchdowns was on a blitz by the Dolphins. He went to his outlet almost immediately for a walk-in touchdown. There's growth right there. Like it's the things we've seen in practice, especially some of those joint practices, that second day against the Dolphins. Randy Dalton's first team offense struggled, but Justin Fields, he performed against some of those same Dolphin starters significantly better. I'll use the word significantly because it looked that way, especially when you score 4 touchdowns in the red zone. So it's just more than the preseason. I get it's vanilla. I get it's just a lot of man coverage, but a lot of what we've seen in training camp, leads us to our opinions on Justin Fields being ready right now.